Today is the 19th Sunday of the year. Our gospel text is Luke chapter 12, verses 32 through 48. It's an extended gathering of sayings by Jesus and a couple of parables. The theme of watchfulness comes through very strongly. Stay awake, be on your guard, be attentive, be alert, be in the moment, be always in the moment. God is everywhere. God is reaching out to love us into freedom. We wouldn't want to miss any moment of it. It is best to understand this call of watchfulness against the backdrop of an affirmation and two negations. The affirmation is found beginning in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 and following. The call of Abram. We can start there. We could start with the story of creation, but let's start with the call of Abram, where God reaches out to Abram, takes the initiative in love and says, go. Leave your family, your homeland. This was, in fact, a call to face death. That's what leaving family and homeland would literally mean. So we find in the call of Abraham a call to the whole human race. There's a kingdom in store for us. It is God's kingdom. That's what we're being called to. In order to enter that kingdom, we have to leave behind a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of agendas, a whole lot of baggage. Implicit in this call of Abram is a promise that becomes explicit in the call of Moses, spelled out in Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. I will be with you as who I am. The mystery of God's presence leading us, guiding us, loving us. The incarnation is the fulfillment, the embodiment of this story. The two don'ts, or the two negations. First of all, don't be afraid. The most oft repeated sentiment in the entire Bible. Don't be afraid. There's no need to be afraid. You are surrounded by love. You are embraced in love. Watch for it. Be watchful in the moments of every day. In all circumstances, God is saying, I love you. The second negation, or the second don't, is don't be seduced. Don't be distracted. Don't go racing off, trying to give yourself to what doesn't really matter. Like Abram, we're being called to a new homeland, for which our hearts actually long. This second negation is also oft repeated through the Bible, often under the heading of idolatry, where we give ourselves to things, to actions, to projects, as if they were gods. We're being seduced. And in watchfulness, we should be aware of this and listen, be attentive in the moment to those idolatrous temptations. Truly hearing this, appropriating this, is to be taken hold of, as St. Paul says in his letter to the Philippians, chapter 3, verse 12. To be taken hold of by Christ. That is the fundamental purpose of the incarnation, to take hold of us in love, to draw us into communion with the great community of love we call God. 1 John says, so we have known and believed the love that God has for us. That really is the beginning of true life, to know that you are loved. The heart hungers for it, but often we go and search for it in all the wrong places. 1 John goes on to remind us that love is from God. All love comes from God. So the call to love is not so much a commandment to do something as it is to be something, to be in love. It's an invitation to cooperate, to participate, to enable God to love us as God wants to. The moral life, as St. Paul points out in his letter to the Galatians, is the fruit of the Spirit. When we allow ourselves to be loved, our behavior becomes an expression of God's very presence in the world. One of the great seductions, ironically, is to think that we have to perform for God. We have to earn this love by right behavior. I think there's everything in the Bible that says, don't do that. Ironically, that is a seduction to idolatry. Mary's disposition is a model for the disciples' disposition. You see before you the Lord's servant, let it happen. Let it happen to me. This is hard work, actually. It's not just sitting back with your arms folded and say, well, God will love me. God has created us free. We can participate. We can open ourselves to the gift, or alternatively, we can simply refuse. We can become an obstacle to God's love of us and God's love of the world through us. Be watchful. Pay attention. Recognize that the grace of God is present in every moment. Abandon yourself to providence. That watchfulness will enable you to move beyond the fears and the seductions that will prevent God's love getting to you. The secret of the Christian life lies in the grace of the present moment.